Welcome to Verb Voice, interviews with leaders in the clinical research ecosystem. I'm your host, Rob Howie. My guest is David Vulcano, Vice President, Research Compliance and Integrity at HCA Healthcare and Honorary President of the Society for Clinical Research Sites. SCRS represents more than 9,500 clinical trial sites in 47 countries. David, good to see you again.
Hey, thanks again, Rob. Appreciate it.
Let's dive right in. SCRS founder Christine Pierre said, and I quote, "We are all aware that as an industry, we currently have an unsustainable model for all stakeholders." What did she mean by that?
Well, if I could channel Christine, she was undoubtedly talking about hearing the voice of the sites to make the pipeline of new medical products not only sustainable, but even more efficient. I mean, Christine founded SCRS 10 years ago as in part to assure the voice of the sites were heard at all tables. As is often said in our meetings, nothing about the sites without the sites, nothing should be created for sites without sites, or any variants thereof. And I would say that if Christine were alive today, she would have touted this is even more important today, or more important now than ever before. I mean, in today's business world, across all industries, companies are much more acutely aware of their dependencies on their supply chains, and
Yes.
how risk in their supply chains can lead to an existential threat in their business. And I know most people think supply chains, they think tangible materials and manufacturing, but sophisticated companies really know it's not just limited to raw materials. And my attestation is that clinical trial sites are a critical part of the supply chain of new products getting to market. And the lack of health in the site industry could be just as devastating to a sponsor as having delays in getting raw materials to manufacture. So, astute sponsors, CROs, and solution providers, they recognize this, and they recognize sites as part of their supply chain, and they're having honest and open conversations with us and listening to our voice. And we still have a lot of work to do, but this was Christine's vision embodied in that quote that you're talking about, that the trial site was not just a transactional vendor, but a true partner that needs to have a voice at the seat of all tables.
Indeed. Thank you. We know there's a shortage of clinical research talent as well as a standard to hire those with experience. How has SCRS challenged the standard to combat the talent shortage?
Well, I mean, sites have historically been the on-ramp to the industry. I mean, we're generally the ones that bring new people in without any industry experience and get them trained and exposed to that first rung on their career ladder. So sites never really had that luxury of requiring that arbitrary 2 years experience that the CROs and sponsors often required of their CRAs. So what did SCRS do or have been doing? So in our part of the ecosystem, we recognize the workforce challenges, and we realized we had an obligation of what we can do for the sites as an industry. How can we help ourselves and not just be lazy and say, we need more money, we need more money, we need more money. So through a consortium of many of our largest sites in our site networks who graciously put all their competitiveness aside for this effort, we assimilated and communicated a lot of best practices in a document and in our online communities and learning opportunities for all of our member sites, be they big, small, part of a network or independent, so that everyone could prepare and diminish the impact of the turnover. I mean, we've truly seen this, and our site community has truly seen this as a pre-competitive issue. In addition to that, these site managers that we're getting together, I mean, these are not brand new sites. These are sites with 15, 20 plus years of experience. And these managers were firm in their belief that even if everyone adopted these best practices, it would still not be enough to meet the acuity and the severity of this workforce issue that we're experiencing today. And thus we had our open letter published to our sponsor and CRO colleagues that with acknowledged and respected that they're going through their workforce challenges as well. But as a reminder that we as the sites are also experiencing workforce pressures. And we opened the letter with a quote that I heard that I wished I could take credit for, but I can't. I heard from a big sponsor or a big industry meeting from a sponsor that says, hey, when our sites are struggling, our studies are struggling. So our open letter, among many things, we called attention to, among other things, one, that there are new on-ramps being explored by sponsors and CROs to decrease the need to rely on recruiting from the sites and that these new efforts should be shared and explored in sponsor and CRO pre-competitive space. And then two, and this is kind of where the more money comes in, that we gave an industry validation that this is a very real situation for the sites, and thus our sponsor and CRO colleagues should expect and prepare for sites requesting increased budgets to meet this hyper payroll inflation period that we're experiencing today that isn't fully baked into all of their fair market valuations. So really validate that this isn't a bunch of sites trying to be opportunistic, but this is a real macroeconomic issue that's outside of their control, and we need to work together to get through it.
Clearly, an industry problem requires an industry solution.
Yes.
You've studied the need for greater diversity in clinical trials, and what impact does a more diverse clinical workforce have on achieving that goal?
Oh, wow. That's one of the best practices touted by sites is having a diverse workforce to meet the diversity of their communities. I hear a lot of prospective subjects say things like, I was comforted to see that there were people there that looked like me. And it also brings a little assimilation of awareness at the site level. Now to be clear, not every site can have full-time staff for all representative capacities, but sites can also benefit from fractional employees, community consultations, training on cultural, spiritual, and accessibility awareness. They can obtain other resources that they may have in their organizations. Many sites are part of a larger healthcare company that has health disparities training and resources available to them that they can tap into. Sites that don't have that, they can certainly get supplements through professional and trade associations, and maybe even from sponsors and CROs themselves. One of our diversity advocates at our last global summit just a few weeks ago had a great quote online, and I'm probably going to get it a little wrong, but it was along the lines of, taking a site, the fundamental shift to move away from all are welcome culture to a we built this with you in mind, and having diverse and or diverse aware staff goes a long way in making that culture shift.
Thank you. The Tufts Center for the Study of Drug Development held a roundtable recently on the correlation of CRA experience and performance. You spoke at that event, and I wonder what conclusions you drew from what you heard there.
Well, it was interesting because they wanted the site experience for a CRA workforce issue. We typically don't recruit CRAs, but it was so thrilling to recognize that they realized that, like you said, this is an industry solution. It's not just a CRA solution. So, this year SCRS has been invited to attend a number of high-level industry meetings with senior execs at the sponsor and CRO world, and I'll tell you, it's been interesting to see the journey from my perspective. At the beginning of the year, all the talk I heard at the meetings were about the sponsors and CROs open positions. How do we fill our CRAs? How do we fill our project managers and whatnot? And thankfully they had the forethought to say, hey, let's get a site voice in here, and we definitely appreciated that, and we can see part of the success. So, attending some of those meetings early and our open letter kind of led to, around the mid-year, we started hearing things like, in these big meetings of, hey, the sites are having workforce issues too, and expecting our studies. So, now we're in the October when we had the Tufts meeting. I was so jazzed and excited to hear that over half the sponsors and CROs there that are there to address CRA industry challenges, they're challenging the whole arbitrary 2-year experience requirements. And like our open letter was encouraging, they're dedicating resources to both identifying and onboarding people into our industry, other than just heavily relying on the sites as the dominant source of their candidate pool. So now, we all realize it's going to take time and some learning headaches before these efforts can really fit their full stride. It'll likely take a few years, but at least during this time, we're directionally correct in this, and we'll start to see some short-term relief. Probably have now, but being directionally correct and taking a little time, we think we can definitely create some new on-ramps for the industry, so that we can have our sponsor CRO colleagues be successful, as well as our sites maintain their sustainability and their success.
It's a collaborative effort for sure.
Absolutely.
Our guest is David Vulcano, Society for Clinical Research Sites. David, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Take care.